If ships sail over the curve of the Earth, why are we able to bring them back into view with high-powered lenses as if they merely sailed past the horizon of the eye's angular resolution? Why are we able to see things over long distances, which, according to the formula for a ball with a circumference of 24,900 miles, should be thousands of feet below the curvature?
This photo, 700 miles away, you see in the Alps of Switzerland from a mountain that is 3,700 feet tall, 700 miles away. That is 40 miles of curvature missing. 40 miles of curvature missing. Please explain this, Globies. Please explain this.
Ships sail over the
Globies.
Earth.
Yeah, that's easy to explain because you've got two effects going on. You got the global effect, which means that you're not seeing the bottoms of those skyscrapers.
I noticed that,
Or
yeah.
the mountain. Even from a relatively close distance, you're not able to see the bottom. But the other thing that they're ignoring is the effect of the atmosphere. The effect of the atmosphere refracts light, so bends light around the curvature of the Earth, which is why you're able to see a mountain 700 miles away. Because you're getting a lens effect from the atmosphere of the Earth. So you actually see a little bit farther. Now, if there was no atmosphere, you wouldn't be able to see objects that far away. But the atmosphere bends light, just like water bends light. So it's the prism effect. And so you need to put those two effects together. And if you do it correctly, you get the diameter of the Earth and the shape of the Earth.
Is there a way to test how far you'd be able to see without atmosphere?
Well, notice that the atmosphere's density and humidity changes with respect to time and location. And so the prismatic effect of the atmosphere, how it bends the light, it will change depending on the density of the atmosphere and the humidity of the atmosphere. And so by looking at different images, like for example, I was on top of Mount Baker in the northern Washington, and I was able to see all the way to Mount Rainier. But all I saw was the tip of Mount Rainier. Now, the distance there is only about 250 miles. But because the atmosphere was so thin at the top of Mount Baker, we're talking over 10,000 feet, you didn't get as much of a refraction effect as you do if you're at sea level. And so it didn't bend quite as far. And so in some places you can get as far as 700. That's about the extreme limit, to go as far as 700 miles. More typically, you're seeing 200 or 300 miles. And if you're right at the bottom where it's really dry, you may be doing well to only see 80 miles.
Wow. And so you're saying that the mountains that he showed in that photo, those mountains are a reflection off of the atmosphere?
It's refraction.
Refraction. Can you explain that?
Through our atmosphere, it gets refracted, which means the light doesn't travel in a straight path. It bends. And because it bends, you can see farther over the horizon than if you didn't have that refraction effect. Now, a good example of that would be the moon. The moon doesn't have an atmosphere. So the Apollo astronauts on the moon quickly recognized, hey, we can't see as far over the horizon as we can on Earth. There's no refraction effect of well, the moon has a very tiny atmosphere. It's got a thin argon atmosphere, but it does very little to refract the light. You're getting the effect of the curvature of the moon being the dominant factor. It's not the dominant factor in the case of the Earth.
Okay, very interesting. And what about the ship that's further out, and then he can't see it with his eyes until he starts zooming in with that lens? Is that the same effect?
Because that lens has much higher resolution than his eyes. And so he's just zooming in and says, oh, I can see the whole thing. Whereas with the eye, all you see is a little dot. But if you're using binoculars and zooming in, you get to see more of the image. But if that ship were a little bit farther away, guess what? You wouldn't be able to see the hull. You'd only be seeing the ship above the hull. But they picked a ship that was close enough that you could actually see the hull as well.
I wonder if there's any videos showing people zooming in and not seeing the hull.
Oh, yeah. You can find images online where all you see is the mass of a sailing ship. You can't see the hull of the ship or the people on board the
Nice fireworks.
Yeah, you can see the mast and the crow's nest, but that's it.
Okay, and so that would counter what this is saying. It's just that this ship is closer than the one where you can only see the mast.
Well, I mean, if you read the sailing literature back thousands of years, when people were shipping or when sailing in a ship, they would always put a sailor up in the crow's nest because being so high above the deck of the ship, he could see a lot farther over the horizon than people on shore. So he'd say, "Land ahoy." And then people would say, "I can't see the land, but he can see the land because he's 40 feet higher than the rest of us." And again, that only works if the Earth is spherical.
Right. Yeah, I'm just wondering if I could find a video showing somebody zooming in with that same, because everybody keeps bringing this up. Okay, and again, I'm so deep, I'm exhausted. I'm trying to crawl out of this hole right now emotionally. Everybody keeps bringing up, we have lenses now that we can zoom in past the horizon. So they'll say, we were told that we can watch ships sail out and then go beyond the horizon over the curvature, and that's why we don't see them anymore. Now all we do is get a lens that can zoom in beyond what we thought was the horizon, and there's the ship.
Yeah, again,
sailing along.
Those people are assuming there's no refraction effect from Earth's atmosphere. That's the mistake they're making. Because of the refraction of Earth's atmosphere, you can actually see farther along the spherical shape of the Earth. For example, when you watch the sun set, you actually see the sun setting longer than you would if there was no atmosphere. Because the atmosphere of the Earth is actually bending the light of the sun around the shape of the Earth. And so you actually get to see a sunset lasting a few minutes longer than it otherwise would.
And that's the light from the sun bending around the atmosphere and around the curvature?
Well,
that's why we see it longer?
the atmosphere of the Earth basically bending the light. Again, the prism effect. If you've got a glass prism, it actually changes the path of the light. Just like as you beam light through water. I mean, have you ever tried to spear fish from above the water and you see the fish there and you shoot at it? You miss because you're not taking into effect that the water itself bends the path of the light.
Okay. And
that's
so
a
the
good
atmosphere
example.
will do the same thing to a lesser degree.
And that refraction allows us to see something that might be beyond the curve to some degree?
Yes, to a big degree, actually.
And that's why we just see the tops of mountains and not the bottoms?
Well, if you go far enough away, even with the refraction effect, you're not going to see the bottom of the mountain. And so, again, you can go online and find images of, big, tall mountains where all you see is the top part of the mountain because you're 200 miles away, or even, in fact, I got a photo of Mount Baker that I took in Georgia Strait. And, I was a good, 80 miles away from Mount Baker. But you actually see the top of the mountain sitting on the water.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and again, that would only happen if you got a spherical Earth.
That makes sense. Yeah, total sense.
Interesting.
Yeah, but because of the refraction of Earth's atmosphere, you can actually see it over a larger distance than otherwise would be possible.
Okay. All right, cool. Let's go to the next one, Dennis. Video 3.